When I was in high school, I thought that you didn't need stress. Stress was a bad thing that you had to solve. You have to avoid the stressful things in order to have a happy, peaceful life. But as time went by, I noticed that I can't avoid it. When you solve one stress, another thing comes up again. That means stress is replaceable and that you shouldn't expect it to go away even after you solve a certain issue. I thought that if I solved all my problems, then I wouldn't be so stressed and I wouldn't have to grow or exceed a certain level to be happy, to achieve success. But honestly, I was delusional. I thought that I could just be peaceful in my comfort zone while not enduring the hardships that takes you towards success. I didn't want to work hard. I didn't want to keep learning and increasing my skill sets. Since it was hard for me, I didn't want to do it because it was stressful. I was like, okay, if it's stressful, that means it's bad for me. So I don't need to pursue it. Looking back, I realized that the comfort that I was seeking was preventing me from growing. I needed stress in order to grow. We learn this in biology too. Species who are under stress, at least some of them, mutate to withstand that stressful environment. Let's say you're a bug, go into a lake, and the lake starts to heat up. A lot of bugs don't know what to do and they'll die. But some bugs, within their genetics or from their behavior, they start to understand how to handle that extra heat, how to handle a more stressful environment. And they adapt. It's like with antibacterial medication. We need more different ones because these bacteria start to mutate and they start to become resistant to the antibiotics. That's why you need stress in order to grow. However, of course, there's good and bad stresses. So you also have to determine what stress do you want and which stress do you not want. What stresses do you need? Here are the big three stresses that you should implement that I did in my life. First one is that you have to work out. A lot of people don't want to work out because it sucks for them. It's hard. And I get it. When I was in track, doing the first workout after a month break was brutal. I'd be stressed, my hamstrings would be on fire. I'd go to the gym and I'd be lifting not as much as I used to, and I felt weird, I felt weak. But that's how it is when you haven't done it in a while, or even haven't done it in your entire life, especially if you're not consistent. Doing this first workout after a 3 week break, a 4 week break is brutal. And people quit after that because it hurts. But having a healthy dose of stress, like working out, would make you feel better because you need it. You need to enhance your health. You need longevity in your health. If you don't work out, you're going to be fat. You're going to be unfit. You won't even be able to run a mile. And that sucks. You won't be able to see your grandkids. You won't be able to be with your loved ones for much longer if you don't work out. So how do you get started? Well, you can become a beginner by working out 3 times a week, 3 full body workouts, or 2 full body workouts and then one cardio session. But honestly, you should be getting cardio at least 4 times a week, be it treadmill, running, swimming, whatever you want. Just do what works for yourself. And let me emphasize this. Like I said before, the first week, the first workout, the first 2 weeks maybe will suck. You'll be sore. You would hurt, and you think that you should quit because it's hurting. You get super sore, and you don't know if it's worth it. But look, your body will adapt to that stress. You're like that bug. When you have a certain stress, it hurts. It sucks at first, but then you learn to adapt when you become more consistent. You have more heat on you, so you become more heat resistant. So that's why you have to be consistent in the gym to know that you have to stick with it. And you start to get used to the weights. You start to get used to the soreness and the routine and the cardio. And then you start to add more stuff to it to increase your stress, to then use that stress for your muscles and your health to become more stronger. If there's no stress on your body, then your body's not going to become stronger. All right, the second thing which I struggle a lot with is learning something difficult. When I was in school, it was hard for me to study for topics that were difficult for me. Heat transfer or stats, things like that. I avoided it because it was hard. I didn't conceptually understand it in my brain because it was new to me and I didn't have any experience with it. That's why when I had the worst grade in college in stats, I sat down 3 hours to do work. And honestly, in that class, there was no homework that was due, so there was no incentive for me to study, do the homework, and look at it. But I realized, damn, I lacked the experience, I lacked the practice, and I could be the loser to avoid it and not study and just say, "Oh, I'm just not good at it." Whatever, throw it out the window. Or you can take the other route, take in the stress, build your brain muscle, and learn. There are days where I'll spend 3 to 4 hours learning a certain probability set or whatever and still not understand it. My second test score, though, was pretty good and it started to average around 70 because the first test was around 40, and that was probably the worst test grade I've ever had. And then when I started studying and putting more effort and time into studying, it was worth it, although my grade didn't really reflect it. I was still proud of myself to do 3 hours of studying, doing a crap ton of practice problems just to understand what was going on. You could blame the teacher. Maybe I'm just slow at learning or I'm not good at stats, but I'm so proud of myself. Like I said, like I put work in it, I put time and effort. I stayed up a long time just to try to understand this. And even though I got a bad grade, I guess you could call it bad, whatever you think. Personally, I thought it was a bad grade, but I'm still proud that I tried. I tried my best. Because back then, I probably wouldn't study. I'd be like, oh, another class I have to take. It's okay if I don't study. And if I get a bad grade, so be it. It wasn't meant to be. But I needed that stress. And that helped me become more studious in the future because we had more hard classes. There's more harder things I had to learn. And I used that skill set and that discipline that I learned from studying from stats to apply to the difficult courses that I had to take. Even now today, when I'm learning on the job, there's a lot of new things I've never heard of, even abbreviations that I have to understand. All I had to do from learning from my experience was to sit down and dive deep into the work, to sit, spend time with it, learn how it works. I also needed to practice active recall and remembering the information, and being able to translate the information that I learned to the real world. And that's it. Just pick something difficult to learn. It could be something new, it could be a difficult elective that you don't want to take, it could be an online course that you can invest in yourself, it could be a new language, even. I am trying to learn Japanese on Duolingo. Although it is a slow process and it's difficult, I'm still able to grow my brain. All right, the last stress you can implement in your life is a hard project. And I know a lot of people don't have a lot of time to start a new project, to start a business, to start a side hustle. But like I said, man, it's stressful. If you're a person who wants to be creative, to express their creativity, or start developing something and make a name for yourself, you do have to start a business, a project that you want to do. And it honestly doesn't have to be a business. If you want a project to learn how to code, develop an app for yourself or a website, go ahead. It's a project. And it'll suck. It'll still be stressful. You'll still learn a lot. It'll definitely kill two birds with one stone of having to learn how to code and then developing that website. But it's still good for you because you're practicing your brain. You're able to keep growing yourself. Now, for me, I like to do content creation just for me to, one, practice how I talk and deliver my information, but two, I'm able to be more creative with my edits and help men or anybody, honestly, who watch this channel to be comfortable with themselves. I know a lot of Asian men out there don't feel attractive, especially in Hollywood, and I also want to help them feel more comfortable in their skin and know how to become more attractive, find that girlfriend, to find that wife, whatever, just so know that you're worth it. But anyways, you can do content creation, you can build a website, you can do, like I said, two birds, one stones with learning a skill and then applying it, whatever you want. Just find a hard project. Anyways, bro, thank you for watching. I know these type of videos have changed, and the reason why is because I'm trying to practice speaking more, especially on the spot. In the past, I used to have a script word by word, and I'd read it, cut it, read it, cut it, read it, cut it. And that would honestly take a lot of time. And when I was doing this, because in college I didn't have a lot of time, I wasn't developing. And my main goal of content creation was to help men become better, but also for myself to become better at speaking, especially because I wasn't that great when I was little. I wasn't great 2 years ago, even. So I wanted to change my content type to help me practice speaking, especially on the spot. So what I've done was, instead of making a word by word script, like I said, I made bullet point summaries on my doc here. And those are just for a reminder for me to know what to speak about, but the rest is all off script, all in my brain. As you can tell with the amount of cutting I have, the amount of mistakes I make, lack of coherence sometimes in my sentences, and the pacing, and the tonality, things like that. Usually, when I have a script by script thing, I'm able to repeat the sentence, practice it a lot more, and add more emphasis because I know what I'm just going to say. With this new type of video, honestly, I don't know. I honestly don't know what I'm going to say next, and I have to come up with it because I'm just speaking from experience. And sometimes I forget about things, so that's on me for not emphasizing a lot more or making my points more clear. But yeah, bro, it is what it is. I want to develop myself, but also deliver the information for you so you can become better as well. But thank you for watching, bro. I appreciate you for sticking in. Don't know who I am. My name is Kensei. I post twice a week. Last week was hella busy with work, but I post twice a week. That is a promise for me now. And if you like the type of videos I post, click subscribe right here. And if you haven't already, check out last week's video right here. All right, brother. Remember to go improve it.